I came home to a typed notice taped to the fridge. The white paper stood out against the stainless steel like a warning sign. You have 7 days to vacate. Vanessa. My stepmom stood in the doorway to the kitchen, arms crossed, smiling like she'd just done me the biggest favor of my life. My dad sat at the table, staring at his coffee mug like it held the answers to every question I was about to ask. Is this real? I asked, my voice barely steady. Vanessa tilted her head, her smile widening. It is now, Amber. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out with shaking hands. An email notification lit up the screen. The subject line made my stomach drop. Change of beneficiary. I looked up at Vanessa. She was watching me, waiting for my reaction. My dad still wouldn't meet my eyes. Something was happening, something bigger than an eviction notice, and I had 7 days to figure out what. Before I tell you what happened next, you need to understand who I was in that house. My name is Amber Cole, and I wasn't the rebellious kid. I wasn't the one who came home late, or skipped school, or caused problems. I was the quiet one, the responsible one, the one who paid bills on time, worked 2 jobs, and kept my head down. I helped with groceries when money was tight. I covered utilities more times than I could count. I was the one everyone leaned on when things got hard. And I did it without complaint because that's what family does, right? But somewhere along the line, I stopped being useful and started being inconvenient. That night at dinner, Vanessa slid a stack of papers toward my dad like it was nothing. Just routine house stuff, she said sweetly. He didn't read a single word. He just signed. I froze. I recognized the letterhead immediately. Anderson & Cole Legal Group. The same firm my late mother had used for her estate planning. This wasn't routine. This was something else entirely. I looked at my dad, waiting for him to look back at me. He didn't. Vanessa caught my expression and leaned back in her chair, satisfied. You won't need to worry about any of this for long anyway, she said. I went to my room that night and stopped in the doorway. Boxes were stacked against the wall, already half-packed. My childhood photos were stuffed into a black trash bag like they were garbage. My stomach turned. Vanessa appeared behind me, startling me. I'm redecorating, she said, her voice light and cheerful. Your room will make a perfect nursery. I turned to face her. Nursery? She smiled and touched her stomach. Didn't I mention? We're expanding the family. I'd never heard her say anything about being pregnant, not once. My dad hadn't mentioned it either. But here she was, standing in my childhood bedroom, talking about turning it into a nursery like I was already gone. When were you planning to tell me? I asked. She shrugged. I just did. The doorbell rang, cutting through the tension. Vanessa brushed past me like I was invisible. I followed her downstairs and watched as she opened the door to a man in a gray suit, holding a clipboard. Good evening, he said. I'm here to assess the property. He walked straight past me like I didn't live there. The realtor started measuring the living room with a laser tool. Vanessa stood beside him, nodding and pointing at different features of the house. We're listing soon, she said casually, like she was talking about selling a car. I felt my chest tighten. Dad would never sell this house. Vanessa turned to me, her expression patient but condescending. He already agreed, sweetie. My dad finally spoke from the hallway. His voice was quiet, almost ashamed. It's complicated, Amber. I stared at him. Complicated how? The realtor looked up from his clipboard, his pen hovering over a checklist. Before we proceed, I need to clarify something. Which of you is the actual owner on the deed? Vanessa answered, before anyone else could. My husband. The realtor frowned slightly. That's not what county records show. Vanessa's smile tightened at the edges. My dad's face went pale. The room fell silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. The realtor flipped through his paperwork. There's an LLC tied to this property, Hollow Ridge Holdings. Who manages it? Nobody answered. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at my desk with my laptop open, searching property records for our address. It took me 20 minutes to find what I was looking for, and when I did, my hands went cold. The house wasn't in my dad's name. It was registered under Hollow Ridge Holdings, LLC. I'd never heard that name before in my life. I clicked through page after page, trying to understand what I was looking at. The LLC had been established 7 years ago, right around the time Vanessa married my dad. The registered agent was someone I didn't recognize. Vanessa's voice came from the doorway. making me jump. Snooping now? Classic. I closed the laptop quickly, but it was too late. She'd seen what I was doing. You should get some sleep, she said, her tone sugary and false. Big week ahead of you. After she left, I reopened the laptop and kept searching. That's when I found it. An old email buried in my spam folder. The subject line read, "Trust distribution, immediate attention required." It was from my late mom's lawyer. Dated 3 months ago. I clicked it open with trembling fingers. The email revealed something my dad had never told me. My late mother's life insurance settlement, the money she'd left behind when she died, had been used as the down payment on this house. The trust documents mentioned something called minor child residence protection. I read the phrase over and over, trying to understand what it meant. There were attachments. Legal documents I didn't fully understand, but recognized as important. One of them mentioned a trigger date, a date when certain protections would activate. My stomach flipped. The trigger date was my 25th birthday, which was in 2 weeks. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen. Vanessa's 7-day eviction notice suddenly felt a lot less random. She wasn't just kicking me out. She was trying to remove me before something happened, before something legal kicked in that she couldn't control. I grabbed my phone and called the law office listed in the email. It went to voicemail. I left a message, my voice shaking. My name is Amber Cole. I received an email about a trust distribution. I need to speak with someone as soon as possible. I hung up and set the phone on my desk. Then I heard it. Footsteps in the hallway. Vanessa's voice, low and urgent, talking to someone on her phone. She knows. The next morning, I got a call back from the law office. The receptionist asked me to verify my identity with my birth date and social security number. Once I did, she transferred me to an attorney named Mr. Brennan. "Miss Cole," he said, his voice warm but professional. "I'm glad you called. We've been trying to reach you for months." "I just found the email," I said. "What is this about?" He explained that my mother had set up a protected residency clause in her trust. It meant that as long as I lived in the house, no one could force me out before my 25th birthday. And the house couldn't be sold without meeting specific conditions outlined in the trust. "What conditions?" I asked. "That's something we should discuss in person," he said. "Can you come to the office today?" I agreed and hung up. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. Mr. Brennan called back 10 minutes later, and his tone had changed. "Miss Cole, I need to ask you something. Did you sign any documents recently, specifically amendments to the trust?" "No," I said. "Why?" He paused. "Because someone submitted paperwork with your signature authorizing changes to the trust terms." My throat went dry. "That's not possible. I never signed anything." "I didn't think so," he said quietly. "We need to talk. Today." I showed up at the law office that afternoon. Mr. Brennan was a man in his 60s, with kind eyes and a firm handshake. He led me into a conference room and spread several documents across the table. "These were submitted 3 months ago," he said, pointing to a set of papers. "They claim to waive your residency protection and transfer certain rights to your father." I looked at the signature at the bottom of the page. It was supposed to be mine, but it wasn't. The handwriting was all wrong. The loops were too big, the slant was off. "This isn't my signature," I said. "I know," Mr. Brennan said, "which is why I flagged it. But I need to ask, where were you on March 12th? That's the date listed on the notarization." I thought back. March 12th. My mind raced, and then it hit me. Vanessa had taken me out that morning. She'd called it a bonding brunch, just the two of us. She'd been unusually nice, buying me coffee and asking about my job. I thought it was weird at the time, but I'd brushed it off. "I was with my stepmom," I said slowly. "She took me to brunch." Mr. Brennan's expression darkened. "Do you have any idea where your ID was during that time?" I thought about it. I'd left my purse in Vanessa's car while we were inside the restaurant. She'd offered to watch it for me. "She had access to my ID," I whispered. "I left the law office with copies of everything and a plan to file a fraud report. But when I got home, I found my dad sitting alone in the living room, his head in his hands. "Dad," I said gently, "we need to talk." He looked up at me, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Fear. "Did you know she forged my name?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. Finally he whispered, "I told her to stop." "You knew?" My voice rose. You knew she was doing this, and you didn't tell me? She said if I didn't cooperate, she'd tell everyone what you did, he said, his voice breaking. I stared at him, confused. What I did? What are you talking about? He looked away. She said you've been stealing money, that you're unstable. She showed me bank statements, text messages. I didn't know what to believe. My chest tightened. Dad, none of that is true. You know me. I don't know what's real anymore, he said quietly. That's when I realized Vanessa hadn't just been planning to take the house. She'd been building a case against me. A narrative to discredit me if I fought back. I checked my phone and opened my patient portal for my doctor's office. My blood ran cold. There was an appointment scheduled for tomorrow, psychiatric evaluation. I'd never made that appointment. The next morning, I went to the clinic. Vanessa was already there, talking to the receptionist like she owned the place. She looked surprised to see me. Amber, she said, her voice dripping with false concern. I'm so glad you came. I scheduled this for you because I've been worried. I walked up to the desk calmly. I'm not here for an evaluation, I said to the receptionist. I'm here to report impersonation. I never scheduled this appointment. The receptionist frowned and clicked through her computer. Ma'am, your appointment was booked online. We received a copy of your ID as verification. I never sent my ID, I said. Vanessa stepped closer. Amber, please. You're not thinking clearly. Let's just talk to the doctor. I turned to her, keeping my voice steady. Did you use my information to schedule this? She smiled. I'm trying to help you. That's identity theft, I said. Her smile faltered. I filed a report with the clinic's administrative office and left. On my way to the car, I got a notification on my phone, my credit monitoring app. My score had dropped 80 points overnight. I opened the app with shaking hands. Someone had opened a line of credit in my name. The account was tied to Hollow Ridge Holdings, LLC. Vanessa had stolen my identity. I went straight to the police station and filed an identity theft report. The officer took my information and asked if I had proof of who did it. I didn't accuse Vanessa outright, not yet. I just documented everything and collected copies of the report. Then, I started digging into Hollow Ridge Holdings, LLC. I found the business registration online. The registered agent was someone named Peter Maloney. I didn't recognize the name, but the address listed was a strip mall mailbox service. I kept digging. The LLC had been used to open multiple accounts, credit cards, loans, lines of credit, all of them linked back to my information or my dad's. Then I found something that made my blood run cold. Payment records. The property taxes on our house had been paid every year from an account tied to my mother's trust. Vanessa had been siphoning money from my inheritance to pay for the house, and she'd been doing it for years. I took screenshots of everything and sent them to Mr. Brennan. He called me back within the hour. This is worse than I thought, he said. We need to stop all payments from the trust immediately, and we need to freeze that LLC. Can you do that? I asked. We can, he said, but it's going to make her very angry. Good, I said. I stopped paying for anything in the house. No groceries, no utilities, no contributions to the household at all. I wanted to see what Vanessa would do. It didn't take long. She exploded. You're freeloading now? She screamed at me in the kitchen. After everything we've done for you? I stayed calm. You mean the house my mother paid for? Her face changed. The anger flickered into something else. Fear. Your mother didn't pay for anything, she snapped. I did. I let the words hang in the air. She just admitted something she shouldn't have. My dad stood in the doorway, his face pale. How do you know what my mom paid for? I asked quietly. You weren't even in the picture when she died. Vanessa's mouth opened, then closed. She turned and walked out of the room without another word. My phone rang. Mr. Brennan. Miss Cole, he said urgently. Someone just filed an emergency injunction to have you removed from the property. Today. Who? I asked, even though I already knew. Your stepmother. She's claiming you're a danger to yourself and others. I looked at my dad. He was staring at the floor. I'm on my way, I said. An hour later, 2 police officers showed up at the door with a civil standby request. Vanessa opened the door, her eyes red and puffy like she'd been crying. She put on a performance worthy of an award. Thank you for coming, she said, her voice trembling. I'm afraid for my safety. She's been acting so strange lately. I stepped forward calmly, holding my phone. Officers, my name is Amber Cole. This is my legal residence, and I have documentation to prove it. I'd also like to report that this woman has been committing identity theft and fraud. The officers looked between us, clearly unsure who to believe. I showed them the trust documents, the forged signatures, the identity theft report. One of the officers, a woman with sharp eyes, looked at Vanessa thoughtfully. "Ma'am," the officer said to Vanessa, "your name is coming up in our system. There's a report here from last year. Similar situation. Fraud allegations." Vanessa's face went white. "That was dismissed," she said quickly. "It was a misunderstanding." The officer didn't look convinced. "We're going to need to take statements from both of you, separately." As they separated us, I felt something shift. The control Vanessa had been holding so tightly was starting to slip. After the officers left, I did some digging into Vanessa's past. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. Court records from her previous marriage, a property dispute, a restraining order filed by her ex-husband's daughter. The pattern was clear. Vanessa had done this before. She'd married into a family, isolated the children, taken control of the finances, and extracted everything she could before disappearing. I printed everything and added it to my growing file. That night, my dad came to my room. He looked older than I'd ever seen him. Broken. "I need to tell you something," he said quietly. I waited. "She's pregnant," he said, "but I don't think it's mine." I stared at him. "What?" "I found texts on her phone," he said, "to someone named Peter. They've been talking for months, talking about money, about the house, about getting rid of you." Peter. The same name listed as the registered agent for the LLC. "Why didn't you say something?" I asked. "Because I'm a coward," he said. "I'm sorry, Amber. I'm so sorry." My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I can prove what she's doing. Meet me tomorrow, 2 p.m., Riverside Cafe." I showed my dad the text. His hands were shaking. "Who is it?" he asked. "I don't know," I said, "but I'm going to find out." I arrived at Riverside Cafe 15 minutes early. I sat at a table near the window and waited. At exactly 2 o'clock, a woman in her 30s walked in. She looked around, spotted me, and came over. "Amber?" she asked. "Yes," I said. She sat down across from me. "My name is Claire. I'm Vanessa's former stepdaughter." My heart raced. "From her last marriage?" Claire nodded. "She did to me exactly what she's doing to you. The eviction notice, the lies, the forged documents, everything." "How did you stop her?" I asked. "I didn't," Claire said. "Not in time. She got my dad to sell the house and took half the money. By the time I realized what was happening, she was gone." She reached into her bag and pulled out a flash drive. "But I kept everything. Emails, bank transfers, recordings. I couldn't use them in court because the statute of limitations ran out. But you can." She slid the flash drive across the table. "There's a recording on here. Vanessa talking to Peter about how she's gonna push you out before your trust triggers. She says your name. She says the exact date." I picked up the drive with trembling hands. "Why are you helping me?" "Because someone should have helped me," Claire said. "Don't let her win." I went home and listened to the recording. Vanessa's voice was clear as day. "She turns 25 in 2 weeks. Once that happens, the trust locks in and we lose everything. We have to move fast. Get her out before the trigger date." Peter's voice responded. "What if she fights back?" "She won't," Vanessa said. "I've already painted her as unstable. Her dad believes me. No one will take her seriously." I played it 3 times, my hands shaking with rage. Then I called Mr. Brennan. "I have evidence," I said. "A recording. She admits everything." "Bring it to my office tomorrow," he said. "We're going to end this." The next morning, I scheduled a formal meeting at the law office. I invited my dad, Vanessa, and Peter Maloney, the LLC agent. I told them it was for mediation, to settle everything peacefully. Vanessa arrived dressed like she was going to court, confident and composed. She sat down across from me with a smile. "I'm glad we're finally being reasonable about this," she said. Mr. Brennan entered the room with a laptop. "Before we begin, we have someone joining us via video call." Vanessa's smile faltered slightly. "Who?" The screen flickered on. Claire appeared, along with a man in a suit. "Good afternoon. I'm Detective Morris with the Fraud Investigation Unit." Vanessa's face went pale. Mr. Brennan played the recording. Vanessa's voice filled the room, cold and calculated, talking about pushing me out before the trust triggered. The color drained from Vanessa's face. She looked at Peter, who wouldn't meet her eyes. Would you like to explain the forged signature, Mrs. Cole? Detective Morris asked. Vanessa tried to cry. Then she tried to get angry. Then she tried to charm her way out of it. None of it worked. My dad finally found his spine. He stood up, his voice steady for the first time in months. Get out of my house. Vanessa turned to him, her eyes wide. You don't mean that. I do, he said. You have 24 hours to pack your things and leave. After that, I'm changing the locks. Vanessa stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. She leaned close to me, her voice a whisper only I could hear. You'll regret this, she said. I have one last thing. Then she walked out. Vanessa's last thing turned out to be a lie. She posted a long story on social media, painting herself as the victim, a pregnant woman thrown out by a cruel stepdaughter. The post got some sympathy at first, but it didn't last. Claire shared her own story publicly with evidence. Other people came forward. Vanessa had done this before multiple times. The narrative collapsed fast. Detective Morris filed criminal charges: fraud, identity theft, forgery. The LLC was frozen, and Peter Maloney was brought in for questioning. My dad started annulment proceedings. He also started therapy, trying to understand how he'd let things get so bad. And me? I triggered my mom's trust clause. The house was officially protected, and I had full legal residency until I decided otherwise. I changed the locks that weekend. I secured all my documents in a safe, and I moved my mother's framed photo to the center of the mantel, face up, where it belonged. I didn't celebrate loudly. I didn't gloat. I just sat in the living room that night, in the house my mother had protected for me, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Safe. The court proceedings took months, but Vanessa didn't show up to most of them. She'd left town, probably to find her next target. Peter Maloney cooperated with investigators to avoid harsher charges, and the LLC was dissolved. My dad and I started rebuilding our relationship slowly. It wasn't easy. There was a lot of hurt to work through, a lot of trust to rebuild. But we were trying. One afternoon he came to me with a box. I found this in the attic, he said. I think your mom would want you to have it. Inside were letters. Letters my mom had written to me before she died, meant to be opened on my birthdays. I'd never known they existed. I opened the one marked 25th birthday with shaking hands. My darling Amber, it read. If you're reading this, it means you've reached the age where you can truly stand on your own. I set up the trust to protect you, not just financially, but to give you the freedom to choose your own path. Don't let anyone take that from you. You are stronger than you know. Love always, Mom. I cried. My dad cried too. I'm sorry I let you down, he said. You didn't, I told him. You just got lost for a while, but you found your way back. A year later, I was still living in the house. My dad had moved into a smaller place nearby, somewhere he could start fresh. We had dinner together every Sunday, and slowly, we were becoming a family again. The trust had fully triggered on my 25th birthday, just as my mom had planned. The house was mine, free and clear. I could stay, or I could sell it and use the money to start over somewhere else. I chose to stay. I turned my old room into a home office. I kept the nursery idea Vanessa had planted, but I made it into a guest room instead, painted in soft blues and greens. A place for friends and family who actually cared about me. I even reached out to Claire. We stayed in touch, and she became a good friend. Someone who understood what it was like to survive Vanessa's schemes. One day, I got a message from Detective Morris. Thought you'd want to know. Vanessa was arrested in another state. Same scam, different family. This time, they caught her faster because of your case. You helped save someone else. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I smiled. Justice doesn't always come quickly, but it comes. I never saw Vanessa again after that meeting. She disappeared from my life as quickly as she'd entered it, leaving behind only the wreckage she'd tried to create. But she didn't succeed. Not completely. I kept the house. I kept my dignity. And I kept the memory of my mother alive in every corner of that home. People ask me sometimes if I regret how everything went down. If I wish I'd handled it differently. The answer is no. I didn't start the fight. I didn't forge documents or steal identities or manipulate people. I just refused to be a victim. I stood up, I gathered evidence, and I let the truth speak for itself. That's all it took. My dad asked me once if I forgave him. I told him the truth. I'm working on it. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means moving forward. He nodded. He understood. We planted a garden in the backyard that spring. Flowers my mom used to love, roses and lavender and daisies. Every time I look at them, I remember that she's the reason I'm still here. She protected me, even after she was gone. And I protected what she built. I started a blog about my experience, not for revenge, but to help others who might be going through something similar. I shared the warning signs, the legal steps, the resources that helped me. The response was overwhelming. Hundreds of people reached out with their own stories. Step-parents who stole inheritances, family members who forged documents, people who felt trapped and didn't know how to fight back. I helped where I could. I connected people with lawyers. I shared Claire's story with her permission. I became part of a network of people who refused to stay silent. One message stood out. A young woman named Kayla wrote, "I just found out my stepmom has been using my social security number to open credit cards. I didn't know what to do until I read your story. Thank you for giving me hope." I wrote back immediately, "You're not alone. Here's what you need to do." Helping others helped me heal. It gave purpose to everything I'd been through. Vanessa had tried to take everything from me. Instead, she'd given me a voice. On what would have been my mother's 60th birthday, I held a small gathering at the house. Just me, my dad, Claire, and a few close friends. We lit candles and shared memories. My dad told stories I'd never heard before, about how my mom had been the smartest person he'd ever known, how she'd always had a plan, always thought 3 steps ahead. She knew something might happen to her, he said quietly. That's why she set up the trust the way she did. She wanted to make sure you'd be okay, no matter what. I looked around the living room at the people who genuinely cared about me, and I felt her presence. Not in a supernatural way, but in the legacy she'd left behind, the protection she'd built, the love she'd embedded in every legal document and every carefully planned clause. She gave me 1 week to leave, I said, raising my glass. But Mom gave me a lifetime of protection. Everyone raised their glasses. To the women who refused to be erased, Claire said. We drank to that. Life moved on. I got a promotion at work. I dated someone kind who respected boundaries. I traveled to places my mom had always wanted to see, but I never forgot what Vanessa taught me. Not about cruelty or manipulation, but about the importance of documentation, about trusting your instincts, about fighting back when someone tries to take what's yours. I kept copies of everything in a fireproof safe. The trust documents, the recordings, the police reports. Not because I expected Vanessa to come back, but because I'd learned that peace of mind comes from being prepared. My dad remarried eventually to a woman who treated me like a person, not a problem. She never tried to take my mom's place. She just carved out her own space in our lives, respectfully and kindly. That's what healthy family looks like. The house became more than just a building. It became a symbol. A reminder that my mother's love was stronger than any scheme, any lie, any attempt to erase me. And every time I walked through that front door, I remembered, she gave me 1 week to leave. I gave her 1 meeting to tell the truth. Years later, I still live in that house. The mortgage is paid off. The title is in my name. The locks have been changed 3 times, just to be safe. I turned the dining room into a library, filled with books my mom loved. I framed the letters she wrote me and hung them in the hallway. I planted more flowers every spring. This house isn't just mine, it's hers too. A testament to a mother's love and a daughter's refusal to disappear. Sometimes I think about Vanessa. I wonder if she ever thinks about what she lost. Not the money or the house, but the chance to be part of something real. She chose greed over connection, lies over truth. That was her tragedy, not mine. I don't celebrate what happened. I don't frame it as a victory. I just see it as survival. As standing my ground when someone tried to push me off it. And I see it as proof that the quiet ones, the responsible ones, the ones people underestimate, were stronger than anyone gives us credit for. My mother knew that. She bet everything on it. And she was right. So here I am, still standing in the house she protected. Still living the life she fought for me to have. Still honoring her memory by refusing to be erased. She gave me 1 week to leave. I gave her 1 meeting to tell the truth, and the truth won.